Welcome to the Commodore 64 compilation comparison video, and the subject of this video was chosen for me by my channel members. I gave them a poll of 3 different collections of arcade conversions and they went for, with 50% of the vote, Konami Coin-op Hits. This was released in 1986 by Imagine Software, essentially Ocean Software, and it had a retail price on cassette of £9.95, and it features 5 games, all Konami Coin-op conversions, unsurprisingly. So let's take a look at it. Okay, so let's begin by taking a look at the packaging, and the logo for the title of the compilation is really small at the top there, Konami's Coin-op Hits. It's got this archway with the 5 artwork covers for the original releases of the 5 games. The games are Green Beret, Mikie, Yie Ar Kung-Fu, Hypersports and Ping Pong. Ping Pong is the only game of these 5 that I've not played before reviewing this compilation. It's got the Imagine Software logo at the bottom there. Green Beret and Yie Ar Kung-Fu, they're amongst my favourite arcade conversions on the Commodore 64, so this compilation should do quite well in terms of the review scores. Those 2 have featured on previous videos of mine about my top 10 arcade conversions on the C64, and I also reviewed Yie Ar Kung-Fu as part of the Magnificent 7 compilation not too long ago, so we'll just be reusing the footage and also the review of that. There's no point me reinventing the wheel, so to speak. Anyway, let's move on to the spine, which just says Konami Coin-op Hits on it in big white letters. Not very interesting there. And on the back it just says the same thing again, Konami Coin-op Hits twice and a barcode. There's nothing on the back here in terms of screenshots or anything like that. If I just open it up, it's not hiding anything with that black cassette box there. There is no information on the back of the case about the 5 games, so that's a bit of a shame. While we're here, I suppose maybe I'll just look at the cassettes, because there's not much else to look at. So there's 2 cassettes, there's 3 games on one of them, Hypersports, Mikie and Ping Pong, and on the other one, the 2 best games in my opinion, I'll say that up front, Green Beret and Yie Ar Kung-Fu. So that alone, that cassette is a pretty decent offering from this compilation. In terms of what's inside, nothing really. There's no writing on the inside of the inlay there, and it just literally uses a page saying 5 Konami Coin-op Hits, so that's a bit of a waste as well. I don't have the instructions for this one. They are actually pretty good though. They've got very detailed information about the games that need it. For example, it's got all the controls for Yie Ar Kung-Fu. It's also got some artwork for Green Beret and Mikie. So overall the instructions are really good. Unfortunately I don't have them, but I don't really need them because these games are pretty well known and I know how to play all of them, except for Ping Pong, which I'll have to look up the instructions for. So let's get on now and take a look at an advert for this compilation, or actually several versions of an advert, and then get on and look at the games. This advert appeared in most of the popular computer magazines of the time. The one you see here has come from Computer and Video Games, and it went through 3 different iterations, of which this is the first. They all essentially have the same layout with just a few differences. The ornate archway that featured on the packaging is used, again with a very small Konami's Coin-op Hits at the top, and below that it says 5 great arcade games for the price of 1. It must be Christmas, so this advert was published in magazines prior to Christmas, advertising the compilation as an ideal gift. The artwork for the 5 games is shown, with Green Beret being the most prominent, and beneath them you can see screenshots of the 5 games, taken from different home systems. The famous Imagine logo is shown in the bottom right hand corner, and it also mentions that at this point the compilation is available for the Spectrum, Commodore 64 and Amstrad, with the latter 2 systems having cassette and disc versions. The second version of the advert was presumably used in magazines published after Christmas, and there are a few differences. The first and most obvious one is that it now proclaims to have been voted the best compilation of the year, although it doesn't say by who. The other change is at the bottom of the advert below the screenshots, where it now says that Konami Coin-op Hits is available for the Spectrum, Commodore, Amstrad, Commodore 16 and BBC Micro, though it doesn't mention that the compilations for the latter 2 systems only feature 4 of the games. The final version of the advert that I found is almost identical to the previous one, with one difference. It now has a banner in the top left hand corner saying available now for your C16, which is a little bit odd because the previous version of the advert also mentioned that it was available for the Commodore 16. I'm not entirely sure why they're making such a big deal about the C16 version of this compilation, as by all accounts it's absolutely terrible. Anyway, that's enough at looking at the adverts. Let's now move on and take a look at the 5 games on this compilation, starting with Green Beret, which was published by Imagine Software in 1986 and is based on the 1985 arcade game. You must take on the role of the Green Beret, a highly trained combat machine. Your mission is to infiltrate all 4 enemy strategic defence installations and rescue the captives. You're alone, against immeasurable odds and armed only with a knife. Use the platforms and ladders to advance through the 4 defence stages: missile base, harbour, bridge and prison camp. Use your knife to attack the defenders who will jump, kick and shoot to stop you. You must dodge bullets, missiles and mortar attacks along the way and collect temporary weapons by killing certain enemies. The weapons include a flamethrower, grenades and a rocket launcher. At the end of each stage, the enemy will launch a major offensive using all the means at their disposal. Survive that and you move on to another more challenging area. You begin your mission with 3 lives and gain bonus lives at 30,000 points and then every 70,000 points thereafter. I never really played this scrolling run and stab and gun game back in the 80s, either in the arcade or on the C64, but I've come to appreciate both versions in more recent times. This conversion is excellent, recreating the look and feel of the arcade version about as well as it's possible to do on an 8-bit computer system. The graphics are very close to the original game, albeit with colour changes for some characters, but the backgrounds seem near identical. The Coin-op's memorable rat-a-tat-tat background tune is brilliantly recreated by the SID chip, and the majority of the sound effects are present too. This version even includes the intro and intermission scenes from the arcade game, so it really does come across as a faithful conversion. Gameplay is pretty much spot on too, and that means it's bloody hard. It may even be slightly harder than the arcade version, as some enemies start shooting at you right from the beginning. You can occasionally fall foul of some harsh collision detection, and that's probably the only gripe other than some of the sprites glitching when there's a lot on screen. You could also complain about having to use the spacebar for the secondary weapon when you pick it up, but there's not a lot that could have been done about that on a stock C64 when the game was developed. There's no doubt this game can be absolutely infuriating, just like the arcade version, but the more you play, the more progress you'll make. When you compare it to the original, this is as good a home conversion as you could hope for, and is an excellent way to kick off this collection. Next up we have Mikie, another game originally published in 1986 based on the 1984 Konami arcade game. School kid Mikey's got a girlfriend and he likes her so much he'll do anything to get a message to her. The trouble is, lots of people really don't want him to get through. A lot of big people like teachers, the whole kitchen staff and the meanest janitor you've ever met. They're chasing him all over the school, from his classroom to the locker room to the cafeteria, the gym and the playground. You must move Mikie through the school by collecting all the hearts in each section. Each heart collected represents a letter in Mikey's message to his girlfriend at the top of the screen, and when the message is complete he can move on to the next area. There are 2 types of hearts to collect. Single hearts can be found on the floor and under stools. To collect these you must walk over them, and you can bump your classmates off their seats to obtain the heart. Triple hearts are placed inside lockers and on top of tables. To collect these you must face the hearts and press the fire button to shout at them 3 times. When the message is complete in each room, the bell rings and Mikie can move on through the door marked out. You must then negotiate the hallway, which is full of doors and surprises, and find the right entrance marked in to continue. You can stun your pursuers by taking chickens or basketballs and throwing them on the appropriate screens. You can pause for breath in the classroom by sitting on a vacant stool, but not for long. You must watch out for the teacher, as if he gets really mad he might throw his false teeth at you. If you make it to the 5th screen, the schoolyard, you'll finally catch up with your girlfriend and deliver your message. In terms of replicating the overall feel of the arcade game, this isn't bad. The graphics are not as detailed as in the original game and lack some of the vibrancy, but are still a fair recreation. The music and sound effects are pretty authentic and the presentation is good, especially the high score entry screen that cycles through the letters using a vector style transform. Sadly, the problems come when you play the game. I was never a fan of this in the arcades anyway, but this version is quite annoying. Gameplay is frustrating and repetitive, as you begin by having to bump pupils off their chairs in the classroom to collect the hearts whilst avoiding the teacher. The controls are clunky and it's hard to get into position to nudge the pupils off the chairs and judge how close enemies are to you. The teacher hovers around close to you, making you do laps around the classroom to get him to move far enough away for you to complete your task. It feels too hard right from the start, as you can lose lives in seconds if you don't start moving, and it's also annoying that you have to restart from scratch when losing a life. Once you get out of the classroom you enter the corridor screens, and these cause more frustration as you can easily get trapped by enemies and lose lives, and they're also hard to navigate. I've never managed to get down the flight of stairs without being caught. For what doesn't really feel like a core part of the game, I do think it's very unfair that you could lose all your lives on these screens and not make any progress. The next proper screen, the canteen, offers a bit of variety, but the gameplay is still a chore as you're now chased by 3 enemies whilst having to randomly shout at things to release the hearts. Being able to stun the enemies with basketballs helps a little, but it's still quite tedious, and that's as far as I got in the game. Like most arcade games of this era, this probably has some tricks for boosting your score and negotiating the levels, but I honestly don't care enough about the game to invest the time. As a conversion, it seems reasonably faithful to the original, but it's just not a game I enjoy in any way. Next up we have Yie Ar Kung-Fu, originally published by Imagine in 1985 and based on the 1984 coin-op. You take on the role of Oolong in his attempts to become a Grand Master in the ancient arts of Kung Fu. To achieve this you must defeat a variety of opponents, each more deadly than the last. They're armed with differing skills and weapons and must be overcome with a combination of 16 different attack moves. This is without doubt one of my favourite one-on-one fighting games from that simpler time before Street Fighter 2, where games didn't have to have combos, projectiles and special moves that I could never perform. This game was pretty influential though, as while it was single player and you could only play as one character yourself, it was one of the earliest games to feature a variety of different characters to face off against, some of which had weapons or projectiles. It also has fast-paced action, a good moveset, charming graphics and a memorable background tune. The C64 conversion is excellent, with the graphics and sound being very close to the arcade original. All but one of the enemies made it into this version along with both backdrops, and the action is just as fast and furious. In retrospect, you'd have to say there are some gameplay flaws, as most matches see you resort to doing leg sweeps over and over, and a couple of the opponents are infuriating as they can trap you in an infinite loop of hits that leaves you defeated in a matter of seconds. In all honesty though, the arcade version had those flaws to some extent too. I played this game to death when I was a teenager and could usually reach the final enemy, Blues, but found myself repeatedly defeated by him. Eventually I got so annoyed that I whacked the handle of my Quickshot 2 joystick so hard that it broke clean off. Nevertheless, it's still a great port of the arcade game that offers a stern challenge and always gives me fond if slightly angry memories. It's that time again where I say thank you to all my channel members, whose names you can see here in my Supporters Hall of Fame. If you're enjoying this video and would like to join these fine folks and support my efforts, why not become a member yourself? For a monthly fee starting from just 99p, you can get access to the special membership perks shown on screen, and more besides. If you're interested, then please click on the join button below this video for more information. If you're not able to commit to a monthly contribution but would still like to support my channel, then you could also give a super thanks. This one-off donation gives you a highlighted comment on whichever video you choose to click the button on, and anyone doing this will also get a shout out from me on a subsequent video. The super thanks button can be found below every video I produce. You can also help raise the profile of this channel by liking this video and leaving a comment, which helps improve my ranking in the mysterious YouTube algorithm. Any support you can give, financial or otherwise, is greatly appreciated. Up next is Hypersports, originally published in 1984 based on the arcade game from the same year. In this follow-up to the 1983 game Track and Field, you must pit your skills and agility against the computer and the clock in 6 events: swimming, skeet shooting, long horse, archery, triple jump and weightlifting. In order to progress to the next event you must achieve the qualifying score or time, and if you complete all 6 events then you must repeat them with a more challenging qualification threshold. Once again, the graphical recreation of the arcade version of this game is done to a really high standard in this conversion. Each event looks very similar to the coin-op version, with good use of colour, a high-res overlay on the main player sprite when possible, great animation and good scrolling when needed. The sound is a little lacking in places, although most of the in-game spot effects seem authentic and there is a decent rendition of the Chariots of Fire theme on the title screen. It's missing sound on the name entry screen though. All the events play pretty well and replicate their arcade counterparts quite closely. This conversion is missing the pole vault though, which is a shame as the earlier Ocean release of Daley Thompson's Decathlon proved that there shouldn't be any issue fitting 7 events into this game. The first of the 6 events is the swimming, which is a classic joystick waggler with just a tap of the button to breathe, and it's quite easy to get a world record time on the first attempt. The skeet shooting takes some getting used to, as it feels less responsive pushing the joystick left or right to aim your shots rather than pressing buttons. The keyboard is an option if you prefer though. Once you get into the rhythm, it's easy enough to qualify, but reaching the world record score requires a perfect run, which is pretty hard. The long horse vault is definitely the hardest event to get a qualifying score on. It took me quite a few attempts to get it right, as you need to time your jump off the springboard and the horse just right, based on the position of your man, and waggle furiously to get enough rotations to earn a good enough score, and also land on your feet. I found it a little counterintuitive too, as I sometimes got a lower score for seemingly doing better. After that, the archery, triple jump and weightlifting all seemed quite easy to qualify on, at least first time around, and compare favourably to the arcade implementation. The triple jump in particular was a lot more straightforward than I remember it. Once you get past the first wave of events, it gets a lot harder the second time around due to higher qualifying scores and what felt like more effort required on certain events too. That may have just been because I was worn out from all the waggling though. I'm not sure if there's a 2-player option in this version. It didn't seem like it based on the title screen and score panel, but as only one event supports simultaneous play in this game, it's not a huge deal anyway. Personally, I've always preferred track and field, but I do think this is a very good conversion of a decent, if slightly overrated arcade game that is challenging but very playable. The final game on this compilation is Ping Pong, originally published in 1986 and based on the 1985 Coin-op. Ping Pong is a realistic simulation of table tennis for 1 or 2 players. The screen displays a 3-dimensional view from above a ping pong table, with the players depicted as bats. The game can be played at 5 different skill levels against the computer or against another human player. The winner of the game is the first to reach 11 points. However, they must win by at least 2 clear points unless the score reaches 15, in which case the game will terminate. Service changes after every 5 points, but if the score is tied at 10-all, then the service changes after every point from then on. You have a number of shots at your disposal, controlled by pushing different directions on the joystick. The drive is a fast shot normally used to return the ball. The cut is a slow shot which can be used to interfere with your opponent's timing. The smash is a super fast shot used to return floaters. Floaters will make a distinctive sound. You can also switch between hitting the ball backhand or forehand, which is effective when your opponent tries to catch you on your undefended side, or when you want to force your opponent to move left or right. The direction in which the ball is returned depends on the timing with which you hit it back. Unsurprisingly, the graphics for this game are nothing to write home about. They're certainly functional though, with a fairly accurate 3D view of the table and a ball that changes size as it moves around the play area, with realistic physics. The bats with little hands holding them are kinda weird though, and brown is not a good colour choice for them. The sound effects are similarly simple, but good enough, and there are a few nice jingles too. Initially, it seems odd that you don't directly control the bat movement, and that does take some getting used to. It will take a few points to understand how to use the bat, then a few more to work out how to win a point, but once you do, then it's just a case of keeping a rally going, waiting for the opponent to hit a floater shot, and then trying to smash it back. Another option is to risk slicing a shot that hits the very edges of the table, making it hard for the opponent to keep the return in play. The level 1 CPU opponent makes a lot of unforced errors, and is quite easy to beat once you've played a few times. It does then get more difficult from level 2 onwards. Most of your own lost points on the first couple of levels will be due to your mistakes, such as trying to smash when the setup shot isn't on. Patience is definitely a virtue with this game, but that can make rallies long and a little boring. Having said that, the game is actually high score based and you get points every time you hit the ball, so keeping a long rally going is actually beneficial and fairly easy to do once you get used to the mechanics. The most annoying factor in the game by far is the delay between shots, as the ball has to come to a stop and then the game tells you who won the point. This really slows things down when you just want to get on with it. I do feel there's only so much fun you can get out of a table tennis game, and while this is reasonably fun to play and well coded, there's not much variety or longevity and it eventually gets tedious. I imagine the 2-player option probably adds more value though, so it might be worth a try if you have a friend to play against. That completes my detailed look at the 5 arcade conversions that made up Konami's Coin-op Hits. The first thing that has to be said about these games is that they're all very good to excellent adaptations of the original games, especially in the graphical and presentation stakes. If you're fans of any of these games in the arcades, I think most C64 owners would be very happy with their home ports, though if you weren't a fan then your opinion on the appeal of this collection is going to vary. Time now to see how this compilation stacks up as a whole, by giving each game an individual rating before coming up with the overall compilation score, taking packaging and value for money into account. So starting with those individual ratings, and firstly, Green Beret is a tough game that may only be for hardcore high score chasers, but if you like a challenge and enjoyed the arcade version, this is a superb home conversion. I'm going to score it 8 out of 10. Mikie is a decent enough conversion of a game that I personally find annoying and frequently unfair. The fact the best thing about it is the high score entry screen speaks volumes. It's the worst game on the compilation for me, and I'm scoring it 5. Yie Ar Kung-Fu was an influential one-on-one fighting game, and this conversion retains all the audio-visual qualities of the coin-op, with comparable gameplay too. For me, it's the best game on the compilation, although it isn't perfect by any means, and I'm scoring it 8 out of 10. With Hypersports, the classic joystick waggling action will only keep you interested for so long, but it certainly looks the part and is another excellent home port. This one gets 7 out of 10. And finally, Ping Pong is not a game I played in the arcade, so I can't confirm how close a conversion it is, but it plays well. The only problem is, it's a table tennis game, and for me that's just not very exciting, so I'm going to score it 6. Moving swiftly on to the overall compilation rating, let's start with the packaging, and on the plus side you get a vibrant front cover, 2 cassettes and some great instructions, but I feel this one is let down by the inlay, in a similar way to another Ocean compilation I looked at earlier this year, They Sold a Million. The lack of any screenshots or game descriptions is disappointing, and while you could argue that the compilation would have sold on the names of these popular arcade games anyway, that doesn't excuse the lack of effort. For that reason, I'm going to score it 7 out of 10. The average score for the 5 games comes out at 6.8, and that just leaves value for money of course. With a retail price of £9.95, that gives you 5 games for under £2 each, and to be honest, at the time it would have been worth that just for Green Beret and Yie Ar Kung-Fu if you didn't already have them. Only Mikie really lets the collection down for me, though I couldn't see myself playing Ping Pong or Hypersports for too long, but overall this collection was well worth the asking price, and it's no surprise that it sold well. Taking the quality of the games as they stand now into account, and considering that some of them don't have a lot of longevity, I'm settling on a value for money score of 8 out of 10. Crunching all those numbers together means that the overall compilation rating for Konami's Coin-op Hits is 71%. Let's now take a look at what the gaming press thought of this compilation when it was released, but surprisingly, considering how popular it seemed to be, there weren't actually any magazine reviews of it when it first came out, which makes me wonder where that best compilation of the year accolade that we saw on the advert earlier came from. It wouldn't be until 6 months after the release of the compilation that it would finally get a write-up in one of Zap's crucial compilation comparison features in the May 1987 issue. You've already seen me reference this several times in this series, and this won't be the last, I'm sure. The write-up for this collection is relatively small, but as usual for this feature, there's a short summary for each game and an overall rating for the compilation. For Hypersports, it says a competent conversion of the joystick waggling arcade game, including swimming, gymnastics and archery. No mention of the other 3 events there, but I would completely agree that it was a competent conversion. For Mikie, it says a poor conversion of its arcade parent, albeit with good Martin Galway music and a neat high score table. Interesting that they mentioned the high score table just as I did, but like me, they don't seem to rate it very highly, although by saying it's a poor conversion, that does suggest that they like the original. The write-up for Green Beret is incredibly brief, just saying a lovely conversion, tough but addictive. Again, can't really argue with that because it was a lovely conversion. And for Yie Ar Kung-Fu, it says disappointing from an arcade player's point of view, but still a playable conversion. I'm not entirely sure why they said that, because I'd say it recreates the arcade game pretty well. And finally, for Ping Pong, it says fair but lacks the playability of the original. As I mentioned, I've never played the original so I can't compare it, but it did seem reasonably good to me. The overall rating they give is 84%, saying the definitive collection of arcade conversions, which is a little bit strange considering they were critical of 3 of them. Anyway, while that overall rating is a little bit higher than mine, I have no argument with it whatsoever. Now, if you're a long time viewer of this series, then you know exactly what's coming next, and if you're not a long time viewer, then this is an interesting place to start the series. You should check out the playlist at the end of this video that's got more than 30 Commodore 64 compilation reviews in it. But anyway, it's now time to see where Konami Coin-op Hits features in my compilation league tables, and starting with the full price compilation rankings, it's gone in at 6th place with its score of 71%. Not quite good enough to make it into the seemingly unreachable top 4, but a solid collection nonetheless. Moving on to the combined compilation rankings that also factor in budget compilations, it's 6th place there as well. It's worth noting at this point that there's actually only one budget compilation left in this table now, for Game Pack number 3 in 11th place. So if I don't get any good budget compilations in the near future, this table might be completely redundant soon. As a side note, the next compilation I'll be reviewing will be a budget one. That does it for another episode of the Commodore 64 Compilation Comparison, except for me to ask the usual question, what do you think of this compilation and the 5 games it contains? Was Konami Coin-op Hits something you enjoyed when you were a kid, or is it something you might pick up now having watched this review? Please let me know in the video comments, and if you enjoyed this video, then please also give it a like. As I've just mentioned, I'll be back with a budget compilation review in the near future, and plenty of other retro gaming content in the meantime, so stay tuned for that. Thanks very much for watching this video, and until the next one, see ya!